Hello, you've reached Gloria with Farmstead Talk, and I am here today with Scott and Amy with the Kansas Farm Wife, and they are representing their state of Kansas in this homesteading interview today. Welcome, Amy and Scott, and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So would go ahead and share a little bit about where the folks can find you on social media.
You can find us at our Instagram, The Kansas Farm Wife, or you can follow our store at our Humboldt Market. And then you can follow our business page on Facebook, our Humboldt Market. So,
very nice. Okay. So go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, where you're currently living, a little bit of your family makeup.
We live in Southeast Kansas in a small community called Moran. The farm we live on, my grandparents moved here in the 30s. My father and his brother grew up here farming and having cattle throughout their life. After college, I came back here and we settled in on this farm, and this is where we started our family and started our own farming operation.
Okay. Okay. If you would share a little bit about the details of your property, the population of the community where you're living, and a little bit about the culture of the feel for your area.
We live in a small community, about 400 people. Everyone knows everyone. There's no stoplights in our town. It is more agricultural-based community. A lot of the jobs that people do have are in other parts of the county, but we're all kind of in a unique little agricultural community where we all know each other, kind of help each other out, vice versa in that instance.
Okay.
The main crop here for years was milo.
Okay.
And soybeans and wheat, with the introduction of all the genetics to the varieties of seeds for corn and soybeans, corn has become the major replacement for milo. There's still a little bit of milo left grown here, but it's mainly corn, beans, and wheat.
Okay. What about the animals out there?
Mostly cow herds. There's several backgrounders in the area. I'm one of them. We buy calves from sales, either send them to feedlots or resell them. There's several big backgrounders in our county and also around Moran. A lot of people have cow herds, but the main thing is a small cow herd of 40 to 200 cows.
Okay. So what did your grandfather used to raise out there?
My grandfather raised Angus and Hereford type cattle. They would put them on a railroad car and send them to the Kansas City stockyards.
Okay.
And sell them up there with a commission company.
Okay. So right now today, what kind of cattle do you have out there that you're running right now?
Mainly Angus. Our bulls are all black Angus, but we have Charolais, red Angus cows, black Baldy cows, but the majority of them is Angus.
Okay.
We try to meet that kind of a black, 85% black carcass.
Are they do you cross them, or do they stay true to their breed?
We try to stay true to the breed, but every once in a while they do cross.
Okay. And who's the consumer for your cows out there?
The majority of them get sold at sale barns. Some of them get sold to feedlots, but the majority of them go to sale barns. There's a sale barn within 50 to 60 miles in about every direction of us.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the details of your farm there, the acreage size and what you're feeding, what a typical day looks like there just on the farm.
Long.
Very long. We go around and feed what calves that are new or weaned or ones that we've bought, and if we need to doctor any. After that, we try to take care of the cows.
What are you feeding?
We feed corn and DDG.
What's DDG?
DDG is dried distiller's grain from an ethanol plant up at Garnett, which is just 25 miles north of us. It is the protein source that we add to the corn.
Okay. And then they're out on pasture, so they're grazing, right? What kind of grass do you have out there?
Mainly fescue, a little bit of native, but majority of it's fescue.
Okay. How long would you say typically that the cows are out there before they go to the sale?
A lot of times we try to wean them a good 90 days or longer before we sell them.
Okay. And would you say your end customers, are they like big population, big cattlemen, or are they like smaller farmers, would you say, that are buying babies? What do you think are the end buyer?
The majority of them, because they're bigger, they're going to weigh from 500 to 800 when we sell them. They go to bigger guys that graze a lot more cattle and feed a lot more cattle, try to make a bigger bunch.
Okay.
Typically, most likely, the cattle will sell better in a larger bunch.
Okay. Amy, you were telling me about vertical integration. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that is and how you incorporate that at the farm?
Yeah, vertical integration is just, Scott's kind of had this idea for a really long time that we would grow the crops, you know, here on the farm. We've bought a lot of land here recently to be able to do this. So grow the crops on our farm, harvest it, and then that's what we store and feed to our cattle. And then our cattle, hopefully with the grocery store opening and stuff, that's what we're butchering through the grocery store, and then that's what we're able to sell to our consumers. So that's kind of our idea of long-term vertical, you know, sustainability.
Is that a technical, like a well-used term, like a general known term, this vertical integration? I just never heard of it.
Well, it's mainly you're taking out the steps of everybody else's.
Yeah.
Like, instead of us buying corn, we raise our own corn.
Sure, right.
We're taking that step out, and instead of buying animals, we're raising our own. We maybe have to buy a few, but we're trying to get out all the steps of it to take care of.
To be more sustainable.
Yeah, you gain profitability by each step. It might be a little at a time, but if you do several steps, it becomes a larger profit.
Sure. I just never heard that actual term, the verbiage of that word.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Sale
barn. Okay. So it's a barn and you have a sale of items, and people bring, is it only your items that you're selling, your animals, or other people bring theirs?
Yeah, local people bring their animals in. We sell them, sort them up, size them, sex them, run them through. We have buyers sitting in the stands. We sell them, put them in pens, feed pens. Buyers will load them out.
Okay.
Sell anywhere from 1 in a bunch to 200 in a bunch.
So are you the auctioneer?
No, I kind of do. I clerk. I sit next to the auctioneer and enter in all the data, the weight, the head, the description, the price, the seller, who's doing it, and then I kind of do the office and all of the computer.
Gotcha. Okay. And how long have you been doing that for?
I've been working in different sale boards around Southeast Kansas for about 18 years. I became an owner at this one about 10 years ago with 3 other partners, and then gradually over the years, partners have left. I'm the only one left. It's a small local barn that kind of serves our county.
Actually, his grandpa used to have it.
My grandfather and my uncles were all in it back in the 70s to early 90s. One uncle was left with it and individually sold it. A couple guys bought it, and then I eventually got into it after they did.
What does the progression look like over the years that you've seen this progress? Do you think that you're getting more people, more farmers wanting to sell, less farmers wanting to sell? What does that look like out there?
It's more older farmers are retiring or selling their farms to bigger farmers that have more cattle. The small little farmers are starting to leave. Their kids have went to the city and got other jobs and have no desire to be on the farm, so therefore it gets sold, and all the little farmers are starting to become bigger farmers now.
I see.
It's been like the saddest thing I think to watch is, I've been talking about, you know, the sale barn and what we're seeing, like trends, and you don't see a ton of young people trying to do this, trying to do this work and trying to, have farms. So it's sad.
Let's talk about your grocery store and why you've decided to go with the grocery store, and what's your end goal for that?
Well, we've been looking at places just a butcher shop for a really long time. There are quite a few butchers around, but just trying to find like those areas that they're not as accessible. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, like forever. We've looked at buildings and places. And then we had Humboldt is where I grew up. It's about 30 minutes away from here. And that's where I teach right now currently. The grocery store there, how big is Humboldt? Yeah. The grocery store there had closed down, so they don't have a grocery store. They're relying right now on like a Dollar General. The closest grocery store is a good 20 minutes away, so it's essentially a food desert there currently. And so the city administrator kind of got a hold of us. We talked to him previously about some other buildings, about having a butcher around town, and when the grocery store kind of stopped going, he approached us about possibly putting a butcher shop inside of the grocery store and kind of running it that way. So we talked to him for months and months, and went back and forth trying to figure out if it was a good place for us. And so yeah, now we're just in the process of, we're under construction on the building, trying to make it energy efficient. We're looking at, different funding sources and stuff through like K-State research. They're helping us with the REAP grant just to make it as energy efficient as possible, to make it more sustainable in the long run. And then, yeah, we're just working with the state and the food people and all of that, just to make sure we're good on the butcher side, the grocery side, and yeah.
So I would imagine that your goal for this grocery store is to be successful financially and everything, but do you have a personal goal for that building and the business? Like, what would you like to see for that community from that grocery store?
I would like to see like it being like a place for like community like outreach too, being able to house local goods from people to be able to sell back to the community, working with local growers for sure to see what see what produce and stuff we can get, or just locally made products. So long run, I would love to see the impact of the community. My principal just messaged me and said, can we do, when you get the grocery store open, would you consider, having a math night there and letting, the kids and the parents, walk around and, do some sort of activity in the grocery store. And we're talking with people about recycling and how that could look and fit into the grocery store, and just a lot of things, just to kind of boost the community and get involvement, and just trying to make it a a cleaner, better place. So
there's also a lot of support in Humboldt in the last 10 or 15 years. B&W ball hitches are made there. The founders grew up there and started their business there. In the last 10 or 15 years, between B&W, which is Joe Works, the owner, and his wife Janie, and Monarch Cement Company, they've done a revitalization of the community, and it is a great place to be right now. And our kind of goal is to be a part of that.
Nice.
They've been featured on CNN a few years ago, to where B&W had kind of slowed down because of the economy. And instead of laying off workers, they sent workers out in the community and cleaned up the community. There's a lot of projects up on their town square that they're taking older buildings and regenerating them, and
a lot of great things.
There's a lot of support behind us. It's a great thing to kind of be a part of that community, and we wanted to see the grocery store succeed with that and be a part of it.
Yeah, I love to see regentrification of communities. What type of sustainable practices are you participating in your household?
Just as far as like food sustainability, like
any kind of practices that you do.
We, in the past, last year, we were a part of a CSA from a local grower down here to the south from Hepler. He had a farmer's market kind of venue, but the CSA, you gave him so much money on the start, and then every week he would bring you certain kind of produce from his locally grown gardens, which are about 30 minutes south of here. He made a round, and he'd bring you different kind of vegetables on that nature.
Well, like Amy, you were just talking about recycling with the store. So that's a sustainable practice. So do you recycle in your home or?
We try to as much as possible. There's not a lot of opportunity to recycle around here. We have a metal place, you know, a few miles away. That's about it at the store right now. Currently, they have like cardboard and plastic. So we try to, you know, keep that stuff, you know, out so we can take it up to the store. But I'm just trying to find a lot more, you know, and a lot more outlets for that. It seems like it's a lot harder than you would think to be able to recycle as far as finding people to take the stuff.
I probably do more than what you think that you do. Like, I'm sure you take your scraps and give them to the chickens. And
right.
You don't throw
all of the time.
Garbage, and just try to reuse whatever you can. And
yeah, the kids love, our son loves making things out of cardboard boxes. He'll make his, you know, Transformer outfits and stuff. And so just, I guess, having things like that, so we don't throw a lot of that kind of stuff away, just because he'll either use it or, you know, we'll take it and try to get it recycled, or we'll use it for, you know, something else around the farm. So
right,
as much as of that as we can.
So what kind of lessons do you think that you're teaching your kids being out on the farm that they may not have learned if they were not there on the farm?
I think, I mean, hopefully a good work ethic. Mm-hmm. They kind of find us on it now, but hopefully in the long run we'll see, you know, reap the benefits of that. So just, you know, having chores and I don't know what else.
Also kind of so they don't have to be dependent on anybody else.
Yeah.
They know, I mean, let's hope we don't go through another depression, but we want to make sure they are knowledgeable enough to be able to halfway be dependent on themselves if they ever had to be.
Yeah. What all they can get. Like, I don't think, you know, some of the kids in town, well, probably around here, but I don't know about in the city, don't understand like where their food actually comes from, or, you know, that your pig might be, you know, a good friend of yours, but at some point, you know, he's going to get probably taken to the butcher. So that kind of stuff, just teaching them, you know, that we raise animals and we treat them kindly, you know, and we do the best to, you know, provide a good place for them. But, you know, there's a use for them. They're not just, you know, here to be our friends. We've got to.
Right. Important is it for you to know where your food is coming from if it's not coming from the farm? So, for example, if you don't have your own homegrown vegetables, would you rather get them locally or would you rather go to a grocery store? Like, how important is it for you to buy local food?
Growing our own food or finding it. I would rather, I mean, clearly we would rather find it locally. We have, you know, they have a few farmers markets around during season, you know, but obviously winter time, you know, we can't really
find. It's hard because of where we live at to get everything you can, you know. It seems like we have 3 or 4 major vegetables that are just easy to grow, and then the rest of them are kind of tough. So it's hard to get all of that stuff locally in a way.
Yeah. CSA, that's kind of why we chose to be a part of it, is because there's a lot of crops that I don't know how to grow, or that we don't have like the greenhouse and stuff to grow. And so it's really opened me up to different, actually different vegetables. You know, you get what he produces. So Swiss chard and beets and, you know, kind of those wintry fall crops or whatever, that when you get them, it's not like you can let them go to waste. You've got to figure out, you know, how to make them or what to do with them. So I realized probably 4 years ago when we started doing it that I love beets. Like, I didn't know that until I figured out how to cook them, and you know, through having a CSA through him. So that's been kind of fun, is just finding out you know, how to use different vegetables that you can grow around here that aren't as popular to grow, I guess. So
getting ready to wrap up, if there is one word that you can sum up your homesteading or your farming experience, what would that be?
Work.
Dedication
And a lot of work.
You have no sick days. You have no time clock because you're always on the clock.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's always something needs to be done, but you try to make it work with all the other activities you have with your kids and your family.
Yeah.
There's not very many days that he's in the house before 9 o'clock. It just doesn't happen. We built a barn with lights, and I knew that was going to be the end all, because he can stay out there and see, he has lights now, so he can be out there working.
Is there anything that you want to promote for your area or your community?
I just think that small town living is just, it's a promotion in itself. There's so many more, I think, pluses or things, the kids having 4-H and being able to grow up in that kind of a community. If something happens, the whole community rallies around you, to help you. And, our son was in the NICU for a very long time. And when he got out, they had a big fundraiser and stuff for him, and for us. So just those kind of things, you're connected to everybody almost in a sense. And so, if you need a piece of equipment or if something breaks down, or, there's always somebody around to kind of lend a hand, or that you can pick their brain and figure out, with cattle. I know a lot of people call Scott and ask him questions about the market and about, different things. So I don't know. I just think that it's a good place.
Do you think it's a better way of life than living like in the city or suburbia?
Yeah, I've never even lived in town my entire life. Like, I grew up out in the country. He actually grew up in town, but they just had farms out in the country. I've never, I just went straight from my country, house with my parents to almost here on this farm. So I don't really know any different. I know when I had to stay in the city with my grandpa, when Coop was in the NICU in Kansas City, I was always like, if somebody comes in and robs us, you're on your own. Grandpa, I don't know what. I've got my hiding spots, figured out. Or, it's a great place to visit for a day and just kind of see, all the things. I feel like when I take the girls shopping or something, they're, almost sensory overload, because there's so many things that they just don't necessarily get to see every day, just because we're here.
It's a more laid back lifestyle. If I go through our town, our home, this Moran town I live next to is a mile by a mile. If somebody honks at me, it isn't because I got them cut off in my car. It's because they know me and they waved at me, or when we drive through town, someone might pull up beside me and roll the window down. I might talk to them for 6 city blocks as I'm driving through town. You can walk out, you could pull into our driveway late at night, open up all of our vehicles, and the keys are in every vehicle. That's how laid back, the kind of community we live in. Not much, crime and stuff like that. We're not next to a major city like Kansas City, which has its perks of all the, amenities and technology, but we're just 2 hours away. So within any time we can be up there and be a part of that.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you for joining me today on this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.